All right, welcome back everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're taking a close look at Tech Mahindra's Q3 FY25 earnings report. We've got a lot to unpack: their press release, the investor presentation, even their consolidated and standalone financials.
Yeah, we're really going all in on this one.
Absolutely. And one figure that immediately caught my eye, 92.6% jump in profit after tax year over year.
Wow, that's quite a leap.
It is, right. But here's the thing. Their revenue actually dipped slightly, both year over year and quarter over quarter.
Hmm. So we've got this interesting contrast. Soaring profits, but shrinking revenue. How do we make sense of that?
Exactly. It's not as straightforward as it might seem at first glance. And for our listeners, a lot of this revenue dip is linked to slowdowns in their communications and manufacturing verticals, which have been kind of shaky across the board lately.
Right, makes sense. Those sectors are facing headwinds, and that's going to show up in the numbers.
Yeah, no doubt. But then we see this other big number, a 95.4% year-over-year growth in new deals. That's a total contract value of $745 million. Huge influx of new business. Seems a bit counterintuitive, right?
Well, remember, these new contracts take time to actually turn into recognized revenue. It's a pipeline, not an instant boost.
Right, so it's more about future potential than immediate impact. Okay, so we've got these two seemingly contradictory pieces: declining revenue in some areas, but a surge in new contracts.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have that massive profit growth. Some's got to be driving that, right?
This is where their Project Fortius comes into play. They're not just cutting costs, they're overhauling operations, automating things, really zeroing in on those high-margin projects.
Right. Streamlining, becoming more efficient. But then, and this really jumped out at me, the press release mentions a dip in headcount, even with all these new deals.
Interesting. So are they maximizing utilization rates, maybe leaning on automation to do more with fewer people?
Possibly. But how sustainable is that in the long run, especially in the tech world, where everyone's fighting for talent?
It's a tightrope walk for sure. And speaking of talent, there's this 11.2% LTM attrition rate mentioned
Hell
in the last 12 months. So basically, the percentage of employees who left over the past year, it's kind of a standard metric, but definitely something to watch.
Right, especially with the increasing competition, particularly in fields like, what is it, Gen AI, right?
Exactly. Generative AI is the hot topic these days, and Tech Mahindra is going all in, it seems. 40% of their current opportunities involve Gen AI. That's a pretty bold statement.
They are not messing around. They've got their Agent X solutions, their centers of excellence,
Yeah,
powered by NVIDIA platforms. Looks like they're diving headfirst into the Gen AI pool.
definitely seems that way.
So lots of investment in the future. But what about their current financial health? Beyond those headlines, what's the story the financials are telling?
Well, one thing that stands out is their strong free cash flow. $199 million, healthy number. And that's partly due to their working capital management. They've managed to improve their days sales outstanding, so they're collecting payments from clients more efficiently.
Okay, good sign. But hold on, there's this little note in the auditor's report, an emphasis of matter. It's about that suspense account related to the whole Saitiam situation.
Ah, yes. That's been lingering for a while. Management says those claims won't be payable, but still something to keep in mind.
Definitely. So we've got this mix of good cash flow, potential risks, and this huge push into Gen AI. What a puzzle.
It is, and we haven't even dug into their segment performance yet.
Exactly. Let's take a look at how their different business units are doing. We can break it down by their two main segments, IT and BPS.
BPS, for those who aren't familiar, stands for Business Process Services. Think customer support, back office stuff, that kind of thing.
Right. And interestingly enough, BPS actually grew by 2.9% year over year, while IT revenue dipped. So they're seeing success in diversifying a bit.
Interesting. It's all about finding those pockets of growth.
Now, listeners, if you pull up the investor presentation, you'll see a nice breakdown of their vertical performance.
Banking, financial services, and insurance is their strongest performer, 8.3% year-over-year growth. Then technology, media, and entertainment up 3.5%.
But those communications and manufacturing verticals are still lagging behind, right?
Yeah, as we discussed, those sectors are facing some headwinds, but then there's this others vertical, and it just exploded, 32.5% year-over-year jump.
Yeah, what's going on there? That's a head-scratcher. Could be a one-time thing, or maybe they've tapped into something really lucrative. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Definitely worth investigating further.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here: revenue trends, profitability, operational efficiency, and even got a glimpse into their segment performance.
We've just scratched the surface, though.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into their strategic priorities, their outlook for the future, and what it all means for you, our listeners. Welcome back to our deep dive into Tech Mahindra's Q3 FY25 performance.
We've gone through their financials,
We really have
explored their operational strategies, and even stumbled upon
some little mysteries.
a few intriguing mysteries.
Exactly. And now let's shift gears a bit and look ahead. What's next for Tech Mahindra? What are they planning? What are their priorities? And how do they see themselves navigating this crazy tech landscape that's constantly changing?
Well, to get some answers, we should probably hear from the people at the top, right? Both the press release and the investor presentation give us some insights into what CEO Mohit Joshi and CFO Rohit Anand are thinking.
All right, so let's start with CEO Mohit Joshi. What's his take on the quarter and where the company's headed?
Well, Joshi acknowledges that the current environment is challenging, but he's choosing to focus on the positives. He's highlighting that impressive growth in New Deal wins, especially in those key verticals and their target markets.
So he's looking at the bright side, even with those revenue challenges we talked about.
Exactly. And CFO Rohit Anand pretty much echoes that sentiment. He's particularly excited about the impact of Project Fortius on their EBIT margin and operating about it.
EBIT, for our listeners, that's earnings before interest and taxes.
Right. So it gives us a clearer picture of their core profitability. And Anand also points to that strong free cash flow, which he attributes to their disciplined approach to working capital management.
So both the CEO and CFO are really emphasizing profitability and strategic growth, even while acknowledging those headwinds they're facing.
Yeah, it's a balanced perspective for sure. They're not ignoring the challenges, but they're also highlighting their strategic initiatives and the positive results they're seeing from those initiatives.
Now for our listeners, let's go a step further than just the CEO and CFO's commentary. What other clues can we find about Tech Mahindra's future plans? The investor presentation usually lays out a kind of strategic roadmap, right?
Absolutely. And one thing that really jumps out is their unwavering focus on Gen AI. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. They're actively launching products, building centers of excellence, and partnering with industry leaders like NVIDIA. Remember that stat we mentioned earlier? 40% of their current opportunities involve Gen AI? Clearly, they see this as a major growth area.
Yeah, they're basically saying, this is the future, and we're all in. But they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, are they? We talked about diversification earlier. What else are they doing on that front?
You're right, diversification is key. They're actively expanding their footprint in key growth markets like the Americas and Europe. And they're also leveraging their expertise in areas like network services and digital transformation to capture new opportunities. It's a two-pronged approach: geographic expansion and diversification of service offerings.
Makes a lot of sense. So we've got Gen AI, market expansion, and a focus on new service areas. Anything else on their strategic roadmap? What about the people side of things?
You bring up a crucial point. The investor presentation highlights their initiatives to upskill their workforce in areas like AI and cloud computing. They know their people are their most valuable asset, and they need to keep them ahead of the curve.
Yeah, the competition for tech talent it's insane, especially with the rise of Gen AI and all these cutting-edge technologies.
Exactly. And to attract and retain top talent, companies need to show they're committed to employee development and provide opportunities to work on exciting, cutting-edge projects. Tech Mahindra seems to get that.
Okay, so we've covered Gen AI, market diversification, talent development. Anything else we should touch on?
Oh, one more important piece: sustainability and social responsibility. Tech Mahindra is actively aligning its business practices with ESG principles.
ESG.
That's environmental, social, and governance. They're aiming to be a force for good in the world, not just a profitable company.
That's becoming more and more important these days, both for investors and clients. And it ties back to their commitment to being an employer of choice. People want to work for companies that share their values.
Absolutely. It's not just about profits anymore, it's about purpose.
So to sum it up, Tech Mahindra is facing some revenue challenges in certain areas, but they're tackling them head-on through cost optimization, strategic investments, and a focus on high-growth areas like Gen AI.
Right. And they're also diversifying their revenue streams, strengthening their talent pool, and embracing sustainability as a core principle.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah, on paper it does, but execution is everything.
And that brings us to part 3. Can Tech Mahindra deliver on these ambitious plans? What are the potential risks and opportunities that lie ahead? And most importantly, what does all of this mean for you, our listener? Stay tuned. All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive.
We've analyzed their performance, uncovered their ambitions, and now it's time to tackle the million-dollar question. Can they actually pull it off?
Right, they've got a solid plan on paper, but well, actions speak louder than words. What are some potential roadblocks they might hit?
Well, we got to start with the big one, right? The global economic climate. It's not exactly smooth sailing out there.
Yeah, inflation's still a concern. Interest rates are all over the place, not to mention those geopolitical tensions that never seem to go away. All of that's got to impact a global company like Tech Mahindra.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the competition. The tech industry is like a shark tank.
Yep.
New players popping up all the time. The existing giants are constantly upping their game. It's how can Tech Mahindra stay ahead in that kind of environment?
Yeah, it's a constant race to innovate, right? They need to be at the forefront of technology, service delivery.
Mm.
Their big bet on Gen AI, well, that could be a game changer if they play their cards, right?
Absolutely. But they can't afford to fall behind in other areas, either cloud computing, cybersecurity, data analytics. It's a lot to juggle.
And they need the right people to do that juggling. We keep coming back to this talent challenge.
Yeah.
Can they attract and retain the skilled workforce they need, especially in a field like Gen AI, where everyone's scrambling for experts?
It's a tough one. They're investing in upskilling and training, which is good, but it's a tight labor market. They'll need to make sure they're offering competitive salaries, benefits, growth opportunities, or people are going to jump ship.
It's a war for talent, no doubt.
Hmm.
So we've got this macroeconomic uncertainty, fierce competition, and the never-ending talent crunch. It's a bit daunting, to say the least. Are there any bright spots? Any reason for optimism?
Oh, absolutely. It's not all doom and gloom, not at all. Remember that Gen AI focus? That's a huge opportunity. If they can really leverage that technology, create innovative solutions for their clients, well, the sky's the limit.
It's a high-stakes gamble.
It is, but potentially a very rewarding one.
Wow.
And then there's their diversification strategy, expanding into new markets and verticals. That's got to count for something.
Spreading the risk, smart move, and their commitment to sustainability and social responsibility, that can't hurt either.
Right. More and more clients and investors are paying attention to that stuff. It's not just about profits anymore.
Values matter. So it seems like Tech Mahindra is walking this tightrope. They've got some serious challenges, but they're also in a good position to take advantage of new opportunities.
It all boils down to execution. Can they navigate the rough waters? Can they adapt as the tech world keeps changing? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So for our listeners, what should we be watching for as this story plays out? What are the key things to keep an eye on?
I'd say keep an eye on their deal flow. Are those big contracts still coming in? Watch their talent acquisition and retention. Are they attracting top-tier people? And most importantly, see how they're using their investments in areas like Gen AI. Are those investments translating into real-world solutions, tangible results?
It's a story that's still being written, and we'll be here to break it down for you every step of the way.
Absolutely. This is a company in transition, making bold moves, facing tough challenges, but with the potential to come out on top.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring all of this, and we want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive into Tech Mahindra. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit thought-provoking.
Definitely. And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions. That's what it's all about.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.